Hey everybody, welcome back to another video. Today's topic is going to be discussing the ramifications of decisions you make compared to the outcome of them. And that might sound a little weird, but what I'm talking about, I've had a couple of conversations lately with a few people who are trying to make decisions on what they're going to do next, primarily with their kids. And one thing you can notice with this, what do I mean is that, well, what I'm trying to say is all this stuff is really difficult. But at the beginning stages of it, the decision that you might make 10 years down the road is not necessarily the choice and the decision you can make today. So I was talking with a buddy of mine the other day, actually a couple of people, because it's really weird that this has been coming up a lot lately. So, well, actually, I'll start with the first story. The first story is somebody who is going through, just the beginning stages of a really toxic divorce. He's got a young kid. I think his son's 11. The kid's basically been out of control for a while. Mom has been out of control. To the point that the kid's not in school, and they've been kicked out of school, and the principals basically said, as long as she's involved, no, the kid can't come back, that type of thing. So the problem is, somebody else had told him, you need to just walk away, because if you don't, you're going to be stuck with this person. And stuck basically meaning stuck dealing with a toxic person. And as I was talking to him about this, I could understand what the other person was saying. And I think, looking down, years down the road, she's probably the person who was giving him this advice, probably 100% spot on. But here's the problem. And this is similar to the advice I was given when I was going through this. I had a few friends who were saying, just let the ex take the kids, let them do whatever they, just, you're going to lose, yada, yada, that type of thing. If you do not feel that you've done everything that you can do, to make that choice carries the cost later of the guilt of feeling you didn't do enough. And this is one of the pieces of the puzzle that a lot of people do not understand. So it's really important that you work through as much as you can, so that if you feel you've gotten to the point that you've lost, that you feel like you've done enough. For instance, when I was going through my experience early on, I did have that underlying sense of dread that I was ultimately going to lose. But I couldn't just I could not embrace that loss and, basically making it happen without at least trying. And, as a result of that, I was able to achieve 50-50 custody, and I've been in my kid's life. And I'll agree with most people. When you have to, you can't co-parent with a toxic person, but, whenever you are stuck, counter-parenting or parallel parenting, depending on how you look at it. Sometimes I like to say counter-parenting because it's, you're trying to counteract everything the other person is doing. It's incredibly difficult. But here's the thing. Had I just given up and accepted, defeat out of the hands of victory, so to speak, and then later my kids started having serious problems, I would have felt incredibly guilty, like I could have done more. So what I'm saying is if you get to the point that you're making a decision, you have to say, okay, if the negative outcome that I'm anticipating was to occur, can I at least feel like I did everything I could? And the reality is, if you lose, right? I mean, if you fight the grand fight and you lose custody and you're ejected out of your kids' lives and you have no impact, you have to be able to, there's two parts to this. You have to be able to feel like you did everything you can and you lost. Or you have to be able to, I guess it's still the same thing, because what you don't want is to say, okay, well, all this happened to be irritated at the system, which you have every right to be irritated at the system, and then turn around and say, well, because the system does fail everybody. So I guess what I'm trying to say is you have to find your piece on it. So if you do lose it, and then all the things you're talking about happen, and your kids just things go completely wrong, that you can turn around and say, you know what, I tried everything. I spent every dime that I could to a point. I mean, you can't destroy yourself in this process, even though we all come really close to it. You got to be able to feel like you've done everything you can. If you're at that point, then whatever decision you make, then you can make your peace with it. I remember having a conversation with my father a few years back where I basically finally had the epiphany that I understood what he went through. And I remember talking to him about it, and he got emotionally excuse me, he got emotionally upset, feeling like he should have done more. Excuse me. And the reality is that he did everything he could with the skill sets he had. There's nothing else he could have done. He was up against a master manipulator that was working their magic, excuse me, against a child. That would be me, by the way. And he didn't know how to deal with it. He didn't have a channel like this. He didn't have resources to help him navigate this on how to interact with his kids and stuff. So I mean, it was lost before it started, basically. But he did everything he could, and I do not want any one of you guys, if you find yourself on the other side of this, feeling like miserable that you messed up, or basically didn't do enough. Now, I'm not talking about the person who says, you know what, that person's crazy and I'm out of here, peace out, and they just walk away and they don't do anything. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about whenever you try to be the rock for your kids, you try to be the stability, and it doesn't work, right? Or you do it for a while and then systematically over the years, your toxic ex is able to finally bend the mind of your child and make it to where they don't, they basically turn against you or side with the other person. Excuse me. See, this is a really tough one. This is really tough because it's one of those things, you make the decision and then the ramifications of it are later. And when I say make the decision, I'm talking about, it's like, okay, I got to go. Like I was rolling into the second story of this, a friend of mine was saying, he's like been dealing with this for about 10 years, like me. Kids are younger, things are just not, it's like the person feels like they're beating their head against the wall and is planning on moving out of the area. Initially, they were going to try for full custody and take the kids with them. Started out where one kid was like, yeah, I want to go with you. And the other one's like, no, I'll never go with you. You're trying to take me away from the other parent. Kids go back to the other house. And by the time they come back, then it's like, no, we're not, neither one of us are going, you're bad, that type of thing. And you can feel like you're just beating your head against the wall. Now, the one thing I just want to say right off the bat is keep in mind you're dealing with kids. They're being manipulated by an adult and they're being manipulated by another parent. Both of those have a significant amount of sway over a child. And manipulative parents use guilt a lot to try to twist the mind of kids. And a lot of times it works, and in this situation it does. So, I mean, and in some ways, this guy saying, or this person saying, they need to move out of the area and just kind of like hit the reset button on their life, they're probably absolutely right that it would be good for them to do that. But the question, again, this goes back to what I was talking about before, is if you make that decision and the kids go down the pit of hell, they become drug addicts, they become, they self-harm, they self-delete, they do all the different things that could potentially turn really bad, you have to feel like you've done everything that you can do to be the lifeline for those kids, and that you did everything you could. And if the answer to that is yes, and then you're making these other decisions, then you're fine. And there does come a point a lot of times where if they've been turned so much, you have to make the decision that, if this situation is killing you and is driving you down into the pit of hell, and your option is to, drive it down into the ground or write it down into the ground, or to eject. Sometimes you need to eject because you got to make sure that you're okay. It's like the analogy of the oxygen mask on an airplane. If you're so focused on trying to help someone else and it takes you out, well, you're not going to be able to help them, and you're not going to be able to save yourself. So basically both of you perish. So you have to make sure that you're stable and you're okay so that you're better positioned to help people, or help your kids at least. It's a tough one. This is a really tough call. And I know that this is a huge flashpoint for a lot of people, because there are going to be a lot of people who would say, I would never give up on my kids. I would never decide to just walk away. And I understand that, but at the same time, and I understand why people say it, because they're trying to convince themselves to deal with their own stuff. I mean, I was in that same situation. But I also understand that if you are losing yourself and you're losing the emotional and mental battle yourself, sometimes you have to. Because if it ends up taking you out, then how does that accomplish anything, right? So anyways, there's going to be people on both sides of this. I personally think that it's important to say this because so many people are so judgmental on people and their stories. And the crazy part is every one of us has been through that with this, with, why can't you get over it? Why can't you let it go? So we've already experienced people basically telling us that we're doing it wrong or whatever. But then there's a faction of us who say, well, I would never give up. And I'll tell you, what it is for the most part is you haven't dealt with a child that's been weaponized, turned against you, that's just crushing your heart because of the cruel, vicious things that are said. And you're probably not experiencing that. Or if you are experiencing that, you're lucky enough to where, and this is kind of a situation I had before, is you can weave in and see the light in the kid's eyes every once in a while to know that, okay, they're still there. But there's a lot of people who completely have it lost, who completely have had their kids turned for whatever reason. They blame the other person, or they completely side with the other person. Hell, I did that with my own dad. And every time I say that, I'll get somebody in the comments who say, you're a scumbag. Your dad should hate you forever because you did whatever. I was a fucking kid. I was a, adolescent when this crap happened, and I had a master manipulator mom who was able to just take every mistake my dad made and amplify it and convince me that he was a crappy person. Plus, he was from a different generation. I mean, it's like there was a different way dads acted back in the day. I'm 51. He's 70 75, 76, now. I mean, we're talking about a huge time difference. And anyways, so I have people who say that. Every time I talk about this topic, I'll have somebody, at least one person in the comments, just say, well, you're a scumbag. How did you do that? Yeah, you know what? I don't feel great about it. But at the same time, I mean, I understand it. That's why I understand when my own kids are going through something. I get it. I don't like it. It's not fun. It's disappointing that somebody who, you've been a parent to can do such hurtful things and pick sides like this, but that crap happens. So if you're in a situation where you're at your wit's end and you're looking at it going, well, I can jump off a cliff, or I can take a step back, try to hit reset on my life and maybe do something different. Well, do that, right? Because that's where you at least have an opportunity to rebuild your life. But at the same time, you need to make sure that you feel that you've done everything you can so that you're not sitting there dealing with the emotional trauma of whatever happened and feeling like, you could have done more. That doesn't mean that if something happened, you're not going to be angry and hateful towards your ex because they enabled this. That absolutely will happen, but you just need to make sure that it doesn't just torpedo your life. So I don't even know if I'm going to post this video. If I do, let me know in the comments what you think. Hey, again, if you think that I'm a scumbag for what I did, and you, like I said, when I said that before, I'm not saying that to try to get someone not to say that. If that's what you feel, put that in the comments too. On that, hang in there. This stuff sucks, but you can definitely get your life back. I've talked about this before, but you don't necessarily, our lives don't come back the way we thought they would. A lot of times it's better, but this is definitely a transformational experience. So on that, I will chat with you later. Take care. Bye.